Okay, this is going to be a quickie video on how to take a look at a few features of your document, meaning the pixel dimensions, how to add more pixels to the image, and also we'll touch on cropping and straightening of the image at the same time. Okay, a lot of the stuff you could have done in, well, not that part, but you could do the cropping and the straightening in either Adobe Camera or Lightroom, but Photoshop has that capability as well. So first things first, let's take a look at what our image information consists of and contains. So under the image menu, we want to go to image size. Here's our image information. It gives me our image size in megabytes, our pixel dimensions here, and you can see in this image it's 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels, so it's kind of an HD format. And we have our width and height in pixels. Now if we wanted to, for whatever reason, say I want to look at them in inches, I can specify, okay, I want to see my my image dimensions in inches, centimeters, and so on. Or I can see it as a percentage. That's 100% of the original. If I want to take it down to 50%, I just take in 50. So pixel dimensions. Our resolution here is what will actually output to. When you're printing something, you want to specify a resolution. 300 pixels per inch is a good rule of thumb. 240 is fine, but it's really only important or relevant when you're printing. So resolution, you can set it to 1 right now if you wanted to. It's not going to matter when you're viewing things on screen or on a website or email or whatever, digitally. But if you're printing it, resolution is important, so you might need to specify that and change it here. Now we could, if we wanted to, change the overall size. So whenever let's say you needed a larger image and I wanted to go to, I don't know, 3000 pixels. Now I'm making the image larger. The new image size will be about 29 megabytes, and it was about 12 megabytes. You can see the new pixel dimensions here, and it's going to resample, which means it's going to scale it up. It has to guess what information you want to add to it. So because the original information doesn't contain 3000 pixels, so it has to guess the in-between or interpolate, in between. These are different options here to allow you to resize it up, especially going up. For enlargement here, you use these different options to see what gives you the best result. Now you can do a little preview here, and Photoshop has gotten a lot better over the years. It used to be really bad to resize, but even if you went up, what's our percentage here? So, oh, not 3000%, that's humongous. That's going to be a 10 gig file. So here, again, I want to go to the pixels, but let's say I wanted to go up 200%. Okay, so I'm basically doubling the size. You can kind of see the before and after to a certain degree. Zoom in here. If you press and hold, and it's a little hard, probably hard to see in this video, press and hold, you'll see the original unresized, and then when I let go, you'll see the after. So click on, there's the before. When I hold the mouse down, when I let go, this is the after. So one of the byproducts of scaling up or image sizing something up beyond a certain point is some of the detail gets mottled, meaning blotchy. Some of the fine, sharp detail kind of goes away. And so you kind of have to give it your best shot. I'm not saying don't do it, but do it and then evaluate it to see if it's degrading the image substantially or within tolerance. Here I can specify a different algorithm. So that one actually looked like it got a little softer. Preserve details. Okay, that's a little bit better. And then this one, a little bit softer. So, you can go in and pick that. Now, it doesn't mean you can't try one of these other ones. They may not be as appropriate, but, give it a shot. Okay, so that's trying to scale it up. I'm going to reset that. And the way I got the reset, if you hold down the Option or Alt key, the cancel button becomes a reset, so it sets it back to when you first started. Just a little tip tip, trick of the trade, my friends, trick of the trade. Okay, so on this one, you can see our pixel dimensions. Whenever you bring a raw file in, it will have a certain pixel dimension based on your camera, and each camera is going to be slightly different. This one actually was a process TIFF file, so I resized it down already, and that's why it was 1920 by 1080. So I'm going to click cancel on that. Let's go to this image here. This image, the adjustments didn't come through. Actually, let me go ahead and close that. Don't save. If it's a raw file that you haven't really done anything to, you can click don't save. I'm going to do file open recent. Same image. Now it's going to open up in camera raw. I'm going to say auto, white balance, auto exposure, and it looks a little flat, but you know, we're okay right now for what we got going. All right, so I'm just click open image. We covered this in another video. Bam, opening in Photoshop. Cool. So it still hasn't been saved yet, so I'm going to do a file, save. So this is just kind of a review of last time. Okay, this is from a gallery photo shoot of a friend of mine, and we'll call it gallery edit to be consistent, and click save as a Photoshop document, just to reiterate. Cool. All right, so let's look at image size on this one. Image size. Now this one is much larger. My camera, the native pixel dimensions are 4368 by 2912 for a raw file. Yours may vary. This one is probably about a 12 megapixel image. And how did I know that? Because really, you just multiply this number and this number together, you get millions of pixels. So it's roughly 3 by 4, which is 3 times 4 is 12. And so from there, you can extrapolate, or extrapolate what the actual megapixel count would be. So here, you know, we can see it's 4,000. I can always reduce the size. Let's say I want it to be that 1920 by 1080 or whatever without cropping. I can click that and I click OK. And when I do that, I'm actually getting rid of information. You can see it was 36 megabytes. Now it's going to be down to 7 megabytes. So it's going to be much smaller. Click OK. And you can see the image got much smaller. I want to undo that because I really don't want to do that for this image, but I just want to show you that you're capable of doing that. You can also save off a copy of that image if you need to. So image size is the way to check out the pixel dimensions and scale it up or down off of its current, you know, or native size. I want to show you the cropping. So again, with cropping, I'm going to grab the crop tool. The shortcut's the letter C for crop. And so you'll get a little bounding box around the whole image. And so here what I want to do is use the straighten tool. Now if your image, especially if it's a horizon or a horizontal image, you definitely want it to be horizontal, especially for the horizon. It's in the name. So what I can do here is simply use the straighten tool. And the way this works is I can just drag this line around here, and this is what I want to be straight. When I let go of it, it'll create a crop box and kind of rotate the crop box so that it looks straight. Now I can move this in if I don't want to see that pillar, and, you know, frame the shot a little differently. I want that in there just a little bit so I have some context, you know, to show that I'm kind of behind something, but at least everything else appears to be straight. We'll cover some more of these other features as we move along, but one of the things I do want to point out is you can either delete cropped pixels, which means anything outside of this window will be deleted when you save the file, or I can keep the cropped pixels, and that way if I need to in the future, I can always go back to that area over there and say, well, you know what, I really wanted that. Let me bring that back. I'm going to show you how that works. So let's say we're going to go something extreme here. Let's say we crop this whole thing like this. Now we didn't delete crop pixels. The way you initiate the crop is either you can hit the return key, or a lot of times it's easier just to click this check mark. This will undo everything. This will reset it back to its default value. This will cancel the crop completely, and this will say commit to the crop operation. Click that, and now the image appears cropped. Now, since we did not delete cropped pixels, I can click on the crop tool and click on the image again. Now, if I move this window over, you'll see that that information is still there, which comes in very, very handy. Okay. Now, if you see that little checkerboard on the outside, that means you're actually adding information to the image. And so these little checkerboards, as we'll see as we move forward, that checkerboard represents transparency in Photoshop, meaning areas on the image that don't have any information. This has pixel information, as we saw in the previous video, and so there's an image on here. This transparent area, this checkerboard area, there's nothing on it. Now, if you printed it, that would print as white or whatever color paper you're printing on, so you don't really have to worry about it, but it will allow you to show through other layers or other images as we get into that. So I'm going to move that over a little bit to get that back off of there. And then on this one, I'm going to bring it back into where I originally wanted it. Right about there is fine. Okay. And I think that's probably good. We can kind of reframe it. We've got the rule of thirds guides here. So we could, frame it up so it's kind of, a little bit more in that rule of thirds concept. Maybe right about there. I don't really need to see that light up top. Cool. I hit the check mark here, and boom, I'm done. So here, what I'm going to do is do a file save. Once you've saved it as a Photoshop document, you can see it specified here. It's already a Photoshop document. I'm just going to file save. No need to save it as anything else. Okay, so we saved our file, file save, and that's it. Okay, and like I said, we can always come back and add that information on the side. Now the catch is, if you keep deleted, or you don't delete crop pixel information, what happens is it actually stays with your file. So even though you can't see it, it's still attached to your image. So if you're trying to crop something because you want to make a smaller file, both visually and file size wise, megabytes, you would definitely need to delete the crop pixels. That way they're no longer part of your image. Last thing is, what can we do? We have image size. We have image size here. One thing I want to point out is we have canvas size as well. And canvas size, let's say you have an image at particular dimensions. I'm going to use the other image real quick. This one. And let's make it a little bit smaller. Let's say I go to image canvas size. Now the way these differ, let me go over image size one more time. Image size gives you our pixel dimensions. We can scale the document up or down based on what values we put in these fields here. So if I want to make it larger than it currently is, which will scale the image up, I put in a larger value. If I want to make it smaller than it currently is, put in a smaller value. So that's image size. Go to image canvas size. It kind of looks a little similar. It defaults to whatever pixel dimensions we have currently. The main difference is it's just going to add more to the canvas, which means, think of it, if let's say you have a photograph on your table and you need to have it, you want to work on it on a larger piece of paper. So, but you don't want to scale the image up or down. You just want to, add more to the outside of it so you can actually work on the outer edges of it. And so, that's not what I want to do. Okay, so here what I can do is I can specify, let's say I want to put in, make it 3000 pixels by 2000 pixels. Now you can see here our original size, or our current size, is about 12 megabytes. If I make it these dimensions, it's going to be 34 megabytes. Again, what it's going to do is add more to the canvas around the image, but not change the size of the actual image itself. So also looking at this anchor section here, we have these arrows. What they mean is if I leave this dot in the center, it's going to add this extra canvas around the image equally. Now if I only wanted to add it to, let's say, the right hand side and the bottom, I can click the dot in this corner, or if I wanted it upper left. So these arrows are pointing to where that information is going to be added. If I wanted to, change it from 1920, keep the image at the top center, but we have it off to the sides and the bottom, we can just specify here, and I'll show you what that looks like. So when I click OK, zoom back out, now I have my original image here. We haven't changed the size of the actual photograph. We've only added canvas to it. So we have more area to work from. And so when we get into using layers and adding multiple images together, sometimes we need to add a little bit more canvas to the image, so that way we can actually add more information around the side and the top and bottom of the image itself. And then this is a handy little thing too, if you need to undo something, Photoshop comes with very handy edit undo. Okay, so I can say undo canvas. I can do multiple steps of undo, so I can keep going backwards if I need to. So we can use the edit menu. Command or Control Z is a really, really handy shortcut to know. We also have the history palette. Okay, here's the history icon. Under Window, we can also go to History, and that pops that out, and you can see here any changes that we've made. So we've opened the document, we just performed canvas size. If I don't want to see or want to undo the canvas size, I click on Open again, and so that canvas size goes away. If I do something else, let's say I go to Image Size, even if I don't do anything, click OK. Well, actually, it won't store it. I have to do something. Image size. I was just doing that on purpose so you could see it. 19. Let's go to 2000. So this is actually going to resize the canvas. Click OK. Now image size, because we went backwards and canvas size was undone, anytime we do something else after what was undone, it removes it. So here, if we wanted to, we can do the crop tool, and let's say we crop, add more to the outside. We're not deleting crop pixels. I hit the check mark. Okay, so you can see it's keeping track of a certain number of steps. I believe it's 20 steps by default. Don't rely on that to be, your only means of, kind of fine-tuning your image or making sure that you didn't do something correctly, but you can actually see what steps you performed, especially if you're doing things quickly. If you're zooming in and out, it's not going to track that. It's just kind of tasks on the image itself. Okay, so image size, if I decide, okay, now I want to go to image canvas size, and just make it maybe 2300 by 1500. Add it equally, click OK, and there we go. So you can see we're keeping track of all that kind of stuff here. So that will definitely come in handy. If I don't want that, I can undo it, and I can kind of step backwards in time, so to speak, to undo our image. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is show, first things first, I want to save that file, but I want to show, okay, we'll come back to that as we move forward. But I want to show that you can take your original file and you have your working file. So we have our PSD here. I want to show you that you can save it off into other files for sending to clients, posting to a website, and so on, but you always keep your working Photoshop document. Okay, and you're always going to make your edits to your working Photoshop document. So here we do a File, Save As. If Save is grayed out, it just means that the image has been saved. You can't save it again because it's already been saved. If I do a Save As, it should default to whatever current format you're on. But let's say I wanted to save that for a JPEG. Or when you're uploading it to Blackboard for an assignment, you definitely want to save it as a JPEG. So here, edit a JPEG. Again, you can leave this on. You can specify whatever you'd like. I'm going to save it to the desktop, or my desktop, so that way I can find it easily. And I'm going to click Save. It's going to give me a couple options here. And so I'm going to say 12 is the maximum. Now, if size becomes an issue, you can lower the quality setting. Notice here it's a 6 megabytes right now. If I save this at 12, I can lower that and it should update. So it went from, just by still at a maximum setting, went from 6 to 2.7. You should also be able to see a preview of this with the little preview button here. So if I zoom in, let's zoom in somewhere over here. Okay, we got a lot of noise or grain from this image, but let's say I take it down to 0. Oh, look how ugly that is. It's going to make a super tiny file, but some of the byproducts of JPEG compression, and the smaller the number, it means it's more compressed, so it's a smaller file. Notice it might be a little hard to see. Let me zoom in just a little bit more. See all these blocky areas? That's the way the JPEG works, is it looks for pixels of similar value or color and blocks them together, and that's how it gets to make that smaller file. As I increase this, the blocks get smaller down to the point where you really might not see it. Here, if I make it 12, it looks even more clean. Right now, we're actually seeing a lot more of the pixel information, but it definitely will help substantially. Click OK. And again, what we're doing is we're saving off a copy as a JPEG file, and I saved it to my desktop. Click OK, and there we are. Okay, we saved a copy, so it keeps the original open. So you want to make sure that the original is open. Again, we just saved a copy. In this case, what I just did, I did a little trick, but I wanted to show, at least on the Mac, and I think it works probably similar on the PC. Notice that this little red dot has a little black dot in it. Now this is a Mac thing. I don't know how you specify that on a PC. That usually means that the file has not been saved. So I did a couple little tricks. You probably saw the screen flash on and off. That was just to make a change to the file so that it would show that it wasn't saved yet. So if I go File, Save, now the file is updated. That little dot inside the red dot goes away, and I can close that file. Okay, so on here, I can click this. This makes it bigger. This minimizes the screen. So I think that's it for this video.